Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and if you hear a loud screeching, possibly a screaming noise in the background, the gate to the apartment complex seems to be a little broken, and it screams in pain every time a car drives through it. So yeah, that's fun to sleep with, let me tell you. Anyway, today in this video, I am talking about the 2021 Hugo Awards Novel Shortlist. So, Hugo Awards, specifically the novel category in the shortlist. There are 6 nominees in this category, and the Hugo Awards happen on December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So this is a couple weeks early for the Hugo Awards, but if you are interested in my opinion on all 6 of these books because I read them, or if you are interested in picking any of these up or even watching the Hugo Awards, I will link the page for the Hugo Awards down below. So, as I said, there are 6 books. I've read all of them over the past year and a half, whatever, and these awards, like the Hugo and Nebula Awards, are always interesting because it seems like there are like a bunch of books that I hate and then one that I really like, or a bunch of books that I really like and then like one that I really hate, or a bunch of mediocre books. And this year is no exception. There are 4 books that I found were mediocre to bad, and then 2 books that I really liked, and I can't decide which one should win. So let's go over these, and I'm going to talk about them in the order that I enjoyed them from the least to the most. At the bottom, I'm going to put a controversial pick in it, but I'm going to explain it. At the bottom, I'm going to put The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I actually think that all of these are just, like, all the books are fine. Like, I don't hate The City We Became by any means. I gave it 3 stars. It's a just fine book. But it's for people who love New York, and I don't care about New York. So, if you love the city of New York and you want characters who are entirely based on the boroughs of New York because you love New York, you'll probably like The City We Became. If you don't care about New York like me, and you realize that basing a human personality on the personality of a shit ton of people in a borough makes that human kind of flat, you probably won't like this book either. The premise of the book is pretty cool. I didn't particularly like the ending very much, but that's personal taste. There's nothing wrong with the ending. It's just like, oh, that's not where I expected this to go. Do I like this? But overall, not my favorite N.K. Jemisin book, but if you like New York, you'll probably like it. In number 5, I'm going to stick Piranesi, I believe, by Susanna Clarke. Now, this book is just, it's very weird, it's very confusing, and it's short, so it's not a bad read, but the entire time you're reading it, you're like, what is happening? I don't understand this. What is going on? Now, I do like books where it's kind of hard to tell what's happening, and it's whimsical, and the characters don't use the same words for things that we do, but they have to be done in a certain way, and Piranesi was not done in this way. So Piranesi is basically about a guy who's trapped in a house, and he calls it his house, but when you hear the description of it, it doesn't really seem like a house. It's got 3 floors. The bottom floor is basically ocean. The middle floor is what sounds to me like Grecian temples, and then the top floor is the sky. And there's endless amounts of rooms, and all of them have statues in it. And he just kind of goes about his daily life, And once a week he meets with a guy who's the only other person who he ever sees in this universe, and they have a discussion and some thoughts, and this guy seems a little off to us, but maybe not to Piranesi. And then you're just, the whole book, you're like, where is this place? What is this guy doing here? And also he finds a journal, I believe. It's been a minute since I've read Piranesi, but I think he finds a journal, and he's like learning things about this other from the journal. But yeah, it's really weird. And then at the end, which I'm not going to spoil for you, in the end it gets unweird, but I think I would rather it just stay weird the whole time or unweird itself. But if you're looking for answers, if you read Piranesi and you go into it and you're like, what the hell is going on? I want answers. This book will give you answers at the end. If you go into this book and you like the mystical quality of it and the confusingness and you don't really want answers, well, you're gonna get answers. But I think overall, my issue with the book is the bad combination between the two. Either keep it all mystical or give me answers sooner. Anyway, it's not a bad book by any means. Again, 3 stars, but not my favorite. Next up, I am going to put in this place Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir in 4th. Harrow the Ninth is the sequel to Gideon the Ninth. And Harrow is insane, like in the clinical term. She's schizophrenic. She talks to herself. She sees things differently than how they are, and she's got like physical defects to her brain. And the book, because it is told from her perspective, and because it's the second book in the series, and her perspective is different than what we read in the first book of the series, it's very confusing. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say, is this book is very, very confusing. It turns around at the end. Once you figure out exactly what is wrong with Harrow, it turns around. But if you loved Gideon the Ninth because of Gideon, you're not going to get much of Gideon in this book. So I think that was my problem, is I love Gideon the Ninth because of Gideon as a character, and you don't really get much of Gideon in Harrow the Ninth. So, and if you've read Gideon the Ninth, you'll probably understand why you're not getting much of Gideon. But if you haven't read it, I'm not going to spoil that for you. Anyway, this one was just weird, confusing, a little bit overdone. I think that if you're interested in the series, it's important to read this, and I will continue the series. But if it keeps going this way, I'll probably fall off on the series, and if it goes back to how fantastic Gideon was, then I'll keep going with the series. Next up at number 3, this one is an interesting one, which is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I read this book, and then promptly everything about this book went out of my head. Everybody says how fantastic this book was and how much they loved it, but I don't even remember what happened, and I don't know what people loved. I think I read this as an audiobook, and I think I need to go back through and reread it as a physical book. So for this one, this is kind of like a cop-out, I guess, but I put this one at 3 because nothing about the story stuck with me, and I've never heard anything bad about the story. So for this one, I'm going to say I recommend going and listening to other people's reviews of it, and to never listen to this on audiobook. So now we're to my top 2. And for the top 2, I gave both of these 5 stars. And it is very hard for me to say which one I would actually put higher than the other because they're just so different. But I think I'm gonna go with the funny over the not funny, which means at number 2, I put The Relentless Moon by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is the 4th book or 3rd book. I think this is the 3rd book in the Lady Astronaut series. This series is an alternate history science fiction, and in the 1st book, a meteor crashes in the Earth off of the US eastern seaboard and basically wipes out all population on the eastern seaboard and causes an extinction event on Earth. And because of the meteor and where it hits and all of the moisture it released into the atmosphere, the Earth is quickly heating up, and humanity has about, I want to say like 13 years or before the planet is just completely destroyed. So they are trying to colonize both the moon and Mars so humanity can survive this extinction event. And in the 1st book, it's talking about, or all of the books basically cover the rampant sexism and racism that you find in the 1950s and 1960s, as well as the science of the time and trying to complete space travel with a lot less technology than we have today. And you just, in the first 2 books, you see the struggles of Dr. Elma York as she becomes one of the Lady Astronauts because she was a pilot in World War II. And the 1st book is about space flight, the very first moon landing, and then the 2nd book is about traveling to Mars. And then in this 3rd book, we follow a different character whose name is going to escape me. I want to say Jennifer, but I don't think that's it. But the 3rd book takes place during the time that the 2nd book takes place, but in different locations. So the 2nd book takes place on the ship going to Mars, and this book takes place on the moon while that ship is going to Mars. And I like this character much better than I liked Elma. Elma, like the first 2 books to me, like I love the 1st book. The 2nd book felt like an exact repeat of the 1st book, but just Mars instead of the moon. And then this one felt like refreshing and different. This one was kind of a mystery story, so if you like mysteries and you want to dabble in sci-fi, I do definitely recommend this. Overall, this series is really intelligent and very feminist, so if you are interested in historical, or if you're interested in like an alternate history sci-fi where feminism and anti-racism are at like the forefront of the story alongside the math and intelligence and the science, then I highly recommend this series for you. It is very, very good, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. I also don't like books that make me feel dumb because I'm not very good at math, and this one isn't really one of those. It's got the math in it, but it's dumbed down enough that you can understand it, or if you can't understand it, it's explained in a way where you don't really have to understand it. And if you're paying attention, you will know who the winner is, in my mind at least, and that is Network Effect by Martha Wells. Now, this is the first full-length novel in the Murderbot Diaries, and so far, this is the only full-length this is the only full-length novel in the Murderbot Diaries, as the book that came out after this ended up going back down to the novella link. So this one, a lot of people didn't like, but it contains my 2 favorite characters, which is Murderbot and Art. And it's just kind of a adventure between the 2 of them and all of their sarcasm in a full-length form. and it makes me happy. Murderbot is basically a security bot who has hacked its minders, and it can think for itself. All it really wants to do is avoid people and watch soap operas, but it has a hard time avoiding people. Murderbot has social anxiety, and it's a very interesting concept when you think about something that is programmed not wanting to be around people. I don't blame it, but I very much agree with Murderbot's personality, and not necessarily the social anxiety to the level that Murderbot has, but I too think people as a large group are stupid. I love individuals. Individual people, great. Groups of people, no. No, 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 no. But if you haven't read Murderbot Diaries, I highly recommend the series overall. It's hilarious, fun, and murdery. And what more do you need in your life? Anyway, that is the list. I actually think Network Effect is probably going to win this. If not Network Effect, then probably Black Sun, because it's the first in the series instead of deeper in the series. So the Relentless Moon, Network Effect, and Harrow the Ninth are all like second book or further in the series, while Piranesi is a standalone, The City We Became, and Black Sun are the first books in the series. So my guess is Network Effect's going to win. But if it doesn't win, then Black Sun's going to win. We will find out on December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's all for this video. See you in the next one. Bye.